Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is good to have you with us wherever you are joining us from. We thank you, and we hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. We have got a lot to talk about. This is our first, if you want to call it live show or studio show from 2026. Of course, started with the show from Batesville that we did back in November from the world's largest indoor kart race. And now we start our run of 2026 shows with a lot of conversation about things that have gone on in and across the racing world. I am joined, as always, by Steering Wheel Nation's news editor and my co-host, Jacob Seelman. And boy, Jacob, we've got so much stuff to talk about here. I don't know how we're going to do it in 45 minutes, so let's get to it, shall we? We're going to start with some talk about the Mecca of Micros, the 41st annual Tulsa Shootout that was held at the SageNet Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just this past week. It is the prelim, if you will, to the Chili Bowl, which, of course, is the difference between micro sprints and midgets. And Jacob, this year, the Tulsa Shootout started with a record number of entries, over 2,000 entries for the week at Tulsa. Holy cow.
So proud of you. You managed to get every single nugget that I would have expected you to get in that open, and I didn't even have to fix anything. Look at you. We transitioned. We transitioned from, as you mentioned, our first show of the new year, which was the world's biggest indoor kart race, to the world's biggest indoor micro sprint race. Being, as you said, the Hyper Racing Tulsa Shootout presented by NOS Energy Drink. 5 days of racing from Tuesday to Saturday of Tulsa Shootout week. 133 on-track races across 6 classes that all culminated in the final 6 A features that were the Saturday night headliners.
Yep.
It was interesting in a lot of ways. First, let's run you down with the 6 winners. We had 2 winners from the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, that being Jax Wittmer in junior sprints and Cullen Hutchison in stock non-wing. You had Braxon Vasconcellos in restricted. Daison Pursley finally broke the 0-for streak at the Tulsa Shootout for him. Got a huge winged outlaw victory for the youngster out of Oklahoma, who has done everything inside the SageNet Center between microsprints and midgets except win a golden driller. Check that one off the list finally. Microsprint king Frank Flood gets his 5th golden driller in A class after a DQ from Jett Yantis. More on that in a minute. And the headliner, the 55-lapper for Outlaw Non-Wing, Jonathan Beason, another Oklahoma product who has become really one of the popular veterans of indoor season, gets his 3rd golden driller and his first driller in a decade. Really dominated too. Led all 55 laps, but it was not without challenges through traffic over the course of that one. But I do want to start actually with Beason for a minute, Tom. I mean, we've watched the lawnmower salesman of the state of Oklahoma go from a youngster 2 decades ago when he won in the debut of the restricted class in 2002, now to be a 37-year-old, arguably one of the most popular veterans in the building, come back, get his 3rd driller, like I said, first in a decade. I mean, this to me, he's been good at the Chili Bowl. He's been good in Tulsa. This year so far has felt like the first year I've looked at Jonathan Beason and gone, okay, yeah, you're great again. And that could be a big omen for the Chili Bowl.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that one of the unique things about the Tulsa Shootout, though, versus the Chili Bowl, I agree with what you said in principle, and the reason that I do is because I think the Tulsa Shootout is actually the harder of the two. You have basically a half dozen Chili Bowls inside of one race event because, or at least 3 or 4 of them of the 6 classes, because
For sure.
you get 400 or 500 entries in each class. So for Jonathan to end up winning on Saturday night, he had to do a lot more work, run a lot more laps, and a lot more competition than he would have to in order to qualify and race for the win in the Chili Bowl. So, after being at the shootout last year and then this year watching it from home, I think it's definitely the harder of the two. And I think Jonathan did an amazing job. Again, pretty much had things his way for the most part. Interesting the way that the racing stacked up on Saturday. I thought that the 55 lapper did have a lot of competition inside it, but as far as for the lead, really very little. And this race for Beason was one of those examples of, the front row producing the winner and pretty much leading the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'll get to more on that statistically in just 1 second. I do want to circle back to the A-class results for a minute. Jett Yantis, of course, has been talked about it by this point. The winner on the racetrack across the finish line, but tossed out in post-race technical inspection, Tom. And I was glad that officials from the shootout actually gave the full rundown of everything that they found to DQ Jett there. Illegal cylinder heads for one, and they also added a little nugget that really shot my eyebrows up into my now almost non-existent hairline. Ceramic bearings in the transmission. Both of those items individually would be a performance advantage for one. I've talked with several people over the last couple days with the technical knowledge on some of these micros just to verify. And yes, both of these items even alone would be, either one would be a performance advantage. The fact that we saw both of them, and bigger, that we saw it in a stock class where everything is supposed to be straight from the manufacturer, no alterations whatsoever. It made me want to look at this and go, did y'all really, really think you weren't going to get caught? Like, hello?
Well, first of all, non-existent hairline. Those of you watching this show, look at Jacob and then look at me, and you decide who actually has the non-existent.
I said almost. I didn't say it was non-existent.
I've had a 5 head since I was 4. Okay, to answer the question though, yeah, this was I feel bad for this young driver, Jett, because this is one of those times when racing just gets messy. Everybody is trying to push the envelope intentionally to a certain degree. And, the honest truth is that we rarely know the honest truth about how, a part got in a motor or happened on a race car or whatever. Here's what I'm pretty sure of. The kid didn't create it. He didn't create the idea, didn't put it on the car. And yet he went out and won the race. Now he got DQ'd. And of course, people start throwing each other under the bus. And it becomes really a stain on his young career, which is really sad because winning a driller is a moment and it got taken away from him by a technicality.
Well, a little more than a technicality. I just want to be, I do want to be clear that particularly the issues that came out about the cylinder heads, that's not something that is accidental. To have the cylinder heads bored the way they were, that is certainly something that is not just a manufacturing mistake from from coming off the line. I've talked to several people to verify that before I say it out loud. I mean, the things that were done, somebody had to have done them, and like you said. Jett Yantis is still a kid. He's got a lot of racing career left in front of him, you'd believe. And no, it certainly wasn't on him. He just went out, drove the race car, drove the wheels off it, and won the race. That should not reflect badly on him. I just hate it, like you said, that unfortunately, it does reflect on him because he was the one driving the race car, and for no other
Right.
reason than that. It's just a shame that it had to happen because, like you said, it does come across a little bit as a stain on a young driver, and it sucks. That part of our industry, yeah, I'm not afraid to say it, both as a fan of the sport and somebody who's now covered a bunch of Tulsa shootouts. It sucks. This is not part of the sport we want to be talking about. But I do believe that somebody like Jett, that he can bounce back from this, and I imagine will probably be even more motivated, Tom, to bounce back from it going forward.
I would think. Here's my problem with the tech. And by the way, when I said on a technicality, I really just meant in tech by a tech issue, right?
Okay.
Something he has no control over. Okay. But
Right.
here's my problem with the tech. Now, I'm going to speak in vague terms here because I don't have proof, but it's been alleged in several places that the winner of the race based on Jett's DQ, Frank Flood, it was his motor builder that did the tech. If that's true, okay, I have a serious problem with that because even if the motor builder is a perfectly honest guy and everything that he alleges was wrong with the motor, it's a really bad look when you're DQing a motor and your motor then becomes the winning motor. Now, it was also said that they tore his car down, did the same tech on his car motor, Frank's that is, that they did on Jett's. But again, that is a really bad look. And I think an event like the Chili Bowl or the Tulsa Shootout, those types of events, you got to be careful about conflicts of interest because that just doesn't look good. It leaves too much for interpretation and wondering about, well, really. So you should always have somebody to cover for that person when one of their own motors goes through the line. Just like if somebody's a chassis builder, should be the same thing. Have somebody else that steps up and does the tech on that just to make sure. And that may be what happened. I'm just saying that based on what I'm reading on the internet back and forth. If that's the case, I think that's unfortunate. And I think, that's something the shootout needs to look at. But yeah, just feel bad, like I said, for the young racer. And of course, happy for Frank Flood to see him get a win. But, that's not the way you really want to win a driller. You want to win it on the track.
No. And Frank even said that in his interview after the fact at the Expo Center that later made the rounds on social media. That of course no driver wants to win a race in tech. Not that you're going to not that you're going to not take the golden driller when they hand it to you. Of course you are, but any
Sure.
driver is going to be the one to say that it's much more meaningful when they can go out, do the job on the track, and have that be the end of it.
Right.
Frank certainly has been classy. I mean, it's countless. You talk about Frank Flood. Not only is he a fine racer in his own right, but he has done so much to be a mentor to so many micro sprint and young dirt open wheel drivers coming up the ranks in his own right through the years. So no, it's he's done so much to give back to the industry. You're right. It is nice to see him get rewarded for his effort. You just wish the circumstances could have been
Correct.
a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Now, you alluded to something that I want to raise as I don't even know if I would call it fully a concern, just something that really stuck out to me at the end of the week here. You mentioned the lack of on-track action for among the race leaders across the 6 features. We only had one official on-track pass for the race lead across the 6 features on Saturday, and that was on the initial start of the restricted A main, which what we would call a youth class in micro sprint racing, just because most of those drivers are the younger. It's more of an entry-level division compared to your four professional
Step up from junior
micro
sprint.
classes. Yeah. Yeah, junior sprint and restricted being the more youth-oriented classes. That was the only pass for the lead on the initial start of the restricted A main. Every winner, save for Frank Flood being in tech, but every winner across the line on the racetrack led every lap of their respective main event. I know we had action over the course of the week. I know we had action in the pack, but I we're going back to 55 laps for the Chili Bowl in a couple of weeks' time. And we've seen talk about the track surface being better in Tulsa, Tom, but what do you make of the fact that as good as the rest of the week was, when it got down to showtime, it just wasn't for the lead, and I don't know exactly how to explain why that was.
I don't either, because track prep is not my area of expertise. So I can only speak for what I saw, and I don't want to, disrespect the event at all. I don't know why it happened. The strange part about it is that you always assume when you get to the A main, you've got the best 24 cars out of the, 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 that started the week in that class, right? So you would think that you'd have more battles, more close battles for the lead, but that's not what we saw, really. So I don't really know what to say about it. I just hope they get it better for the Chili Bowl, because, again, as you say, going from 40 to 55 laps, we want, you want to see some back and forth action, and a track that, the leaders, the guys can slice and dice and make some passes. Yeah. So it wasn't that there was no passing in the events so much. It was just, I guess the right 6 people started up front, apparently, because most of them, they just took off and left,
For sure. They did. What do you make also, after you and I both having watched the entire week, of the fact that we set a modern era record for flip count over the course of the week? As soon as we got past about 155, everybody looked at Wikipedia and said, this has to be a record, right? And Brian Walker basically said, for everything that he has, that was by far and away a record for this event. Is it just closer competition? Is it drivers making moves that maybe were a little too daring? I mean, I feel like we saw a lot of different reasons for a lot of different chaos, including a dumpster.
Yeah, I think it was Tuesday. It was either day 1 or day 2 of racing that we started.
It was Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. We started the Chili Bowl with a car that literally flipped over the fence and landed in a dumpster. That is not a joke. That actually happened. Go to Flow Racing's Facebook, scroll back, and you'll find it. There's footage there. The video is crazy. Yep. But I don't know how they structured the contract with IBOC to sponsor the flip count, but if there wasn't some sort of an extra payment if they set a record, then they did it wrong, because IBOC got more than its money's worth, because yes. we had a lot of cars overturned, and I, again, a lot of that's just drivers being too aggressive and making poor decisions. Some of it, again, is just the track too at times, and can't be helped. Those cars, open wheel cars flip easy, and we just had a run on them. And that's, the flip count's always fascinating. I guess the Chili Bowl's got something that they hope they don't live up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to touch real quick on the Outlaw Winged main event that Daison Pursley won, that 30-lapper, because the way that ended up really felt like I was watching a replay of the 2025 Chili Bowl, just in micro sprints and 11 and a half months later. But I also, Tom, think, and we can talk about this on the other side, that it could be a preview for exactly what we're going to see in the 2026 Chili Bowl Midget Nationals.
Well, I would love to talk about that on the other side of this break. We'll be back with more of the show right after this.
For race fans across the United States. GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show as we finish up our conversation about the 41st annual Tulsa Shootout. Jacob, Daison Pursley, finally, Daison Pursley got his driller at the Tulsa Shootout.
He did. I loved this so much. He and CB Industries' Chad Boat have come so close between midgets and micros over the past couple years. And for those who have not heard you and I talk about Daison's story before, this is the same driver who about 4 years ago was involved in a midget crash that nearly took away his ability to walk. He came back from an incomplete spinal cord injury, not only to walk again, but to race again, to win again, and now he has a driller. I mean, this is a kid that now, just in his early 20s, has compiled some highlight reel moments that would mean a lot to anybody who hasn't been through what Daison's been through. But the fact that he's compiled so many of them after coming back from nearly not having a racing career. I mean, this kid is such an inspiration and should be to not just anybody in the racing industry, but anybody in life. And I'm so thrilled that he finally has had what I think will be his first of potentially several moments through the years inside that building. What I alluded to during the break or before the break was that the Outlaw Winged feature was Daison Pursley versus Kyle Larson through traffic late in the race. Kyle could have gotten him, maybe should have gotten him at one point, and Daison just said, "Not today, sir. This one is mine." And I have this weird feeling, Tom, and maybe I'm proven wrong, maybe I'm proven right. But that, to me, looked like we could see the exact same thing with the exact same two drivers, only in midget cars, on Saturday night of Chili Bowl week, because Daison has been in the top 5 the last 3 years. He put on a ridiculous charge a couple years ago from 21st to 4th in his first Chili Bowl back after the spinal cord injury and his recovery. He finished on the podium in last year's Chili Bowl in a race that Larson won and Daison contended in the 40-lap distance. These two have become two of the perennial favorites inside the SageNet Center. And I think if you sat there and I told you, okay, Chili Bowl 2026 is going to come down to Daison Pursley versus Kyle Larson, would you be surprised? Because I absolutely wouldn't be at this point.
No, neither would I. Now, of course, obviously, there are probably over 400 other competitors that would like to at least
300
have a dispute with that. Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I feel like Daison is in one of these, you get into these periods where you're just locked in, and he's had a great fall of 25. Obviously he's got a lot of things going big time right for him right now. And I couldn't be happier for the young man because he's as humble as the day is long. And as you say, the challenges he's overcome, his story is amazing. And, we hope to have him on a future show here. With that being said, to be able to race and beat Kyle Larson, to hold him off is, that's not easy to do. And so, that was that may have been the most interesting of all of the races, to be honest, just because of the two players who were involved down to the wire. So I'm tickled to death for Daison. And, obviously Kyle's one of the best ever to sit in a race car. I think we can all agree on that. And, that both of them are going to be trying to put themselves back in that same position. And, who knows, depending on how things go next week at the Chili Bowl, it could very well happen.
Let's make it clear, by the way, the momentum that everybody's coming in with here. Larson comes in not only as the defending Chili Bowl winner, he's a 3-time Chili Bowl champion, going back to his back-to-back wins in 2020 and 2021. He also won $110,000 in the High Limit International Sprint Car event down in Australia at Perth Motorplex to ring in the new year. So Larson's coming in off a big win in the sprint car. Daison comes in off a big win in the micro sprint at the Tulsa Shootout. You've got multi-time Chili Bowl winners like Sammy Swindell and Larson's rival for so many years, Christopher Bell, back for more to try to add to their totals. You've got past winners in Tanner Thorson and Logan Seavey in the mix, as you mentioned, probably 300 to at one of these days. I do think we are going to get to the 400 entry threshold.
I wouldn't be surprised this year.
Well, when we do, it is going to probably make Brian Walker dissolve into a puddle of goo on social media, and Walker Media will cease to exist for a couple of minutes, because that will be the moment that everything stops turning in Tulsa for about 30 seconds. That 400 entry threshold is like hollowed ground, the will we, won't we conversation. I think the biggest conversations outside of, who could potentially get their first driller. We talked about Pursley. We talked about Jonathan Beason. I'll talk more about Matt Wood Racing in a minute, because that whole team is interesting to me. But Tom, the big story of this Chili Bowl is Christopher Bell bringing his own equipment to the show. In past years, he's driven for Keith Coons, he's driven for CB Industries and Chad Boat, but him having his own stuff at the dance this year, kind of like the first year that Larson had his own stuff at the dance and finally won it, this could be the year where Christopher Bell ties Kevin Swindell number 2 on the list with his 4th driller, because I think Christopher has a little extra motivation this time.
Well, sure. Anytime that you're bringing your own stuff, you definitely have a little extra juice, I think, to go out with. But this is not, even though obviously Christopher and Larson and Swindell, Kevin and Sammy, even though we've had multiple winners, right? This is not an easy race to win. They're just that doggone good.
Yes.
And so, I feel like Chris goes in as one of the favorites. Surely, of course he does, but not going to be a cakewalk. I think this year is going to be really intriguing, because you've got some guys that, we don't talk about all the time in big time, open wheel racing, like the Bells and, others that are coming in with, as you say, a little extra motivation. And then you've got Kyle Larson, and, in my opinion, just like it did Kevin Swindell for years, I think the driller for the Chili Bowl goes through Kyle Larson now. So we'll see. Chris Bell would be the other choice, obviously, but there's still a lot of other drivers that can pull this off and have plenty of motivation to do it.
For sure. I mentioned Matt Wood Racing a minute ago, the likes of the Shane Golobics and the Colby Copelands of the world. Darren Pittman, yes, that Darren Pittman is going to be in a bona fide Matt Wood Racing entry this year, which I think is a huge deal. Darren has always done a lot himself at the building, and I think maybe taking a little bit of that stress off his shoulders and just allowing Darren to be Darren the driver again could be humongous for his chances of finally getting a driller. He's another one of the Oklahoma contingent that so badly would love to win one for the home crowd. And the return to the 55 lap.
It's going to be really interesting. I think the return, as Jacob started to say, the return to the 55 lap formula for the feature 55 lap distance is going to make the Chili Bowl a whole new race again. And, you know, what we saw at the Tulsa Shootout, not much passing up front. Somehow, I think we are going to see something a little bit different come Chili Bowl time. I think there will be passing. It will be a good track, and it should be a lot of fun.
I think it will be. I'm intrigued on a lot of fronts. There are some on the list that get to just be drivers again that I think is going to benefit them. Darren Pittman and the Matt Wood Racing stable comes chief to mind in that. And there are others. You've got the Petty Performance team bringing 6 cars to Chili Bowl, including one Justin Peck, who's had plenty of success in sprint cars over the past couple of years. Just too many. Yeah. We would need about a 5-hour show to talk about every storyline that I really want to going into Chili Bowl week, and we just don't have that time. And
Yeah, well, we've got the Steering Wheel Nation hub, steeringwheelnation.com, and all of our socials at The Wheel Nation on Facebook, X, and Instagram. You'll see coverage on Facebook and X all the way through the Chili Bowl, as well as on our hub, steeringwheelnation.com. And with that, we are going to step aside. When we come back, unfortunately, we must once again pay tribute to a fallen friend of ours from the motorsports world who was much beloved. We're going to do that right after this. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. And as we wind into our last lap segment for the day, want to unfortunately talk about a couple of more tragic events that have happened since the last time we actually had a show. Jacob, the first involves the Hamlin family, and I don't even know how to talk about this. I'm going to let you start because I don't know if I even know where to start with this.
I'll start with the facts first off. Right before the end of 2025, the last week of December, a tragic house fire in Stanley, North Carolina was later revealed to be at that of Denny Hamlin's parents, Dennis and Mary Lou. Unfortunately, Denny's dad, Dennis, passed away from his injuries in that fire. Denny's mom, Mary Lou, still being treated at a local hospital here in North Carolina. And certainly first want to say that we're continuing to send all our prayers and well wishes to Mary Lou Hamlin and the Hamlin family for her continued recovery. Denny did offer an update a few days ago that his mom is making progress, in Denny's words, which is encouraging to hear. But I just, you're right. It's tough to talk about because there was already the emotion late last year of Denny revealing that his dad was in declining health, and that alone was tough. To see Denny get 60 Cup Series wins, a milestone he wanted to reach so much for his dad, was emotional. To see Denny come so close to a Cup championship, something that he wanted to give his dad, was emotional. And then to to have this happen and for Denny to lose his dad like this, I just, like you said, I don't even know fully what to say other than to say that now, I mean, you fully see the breadth and the depth, I feel like, of all of Dennis Hamlin's sacrifices and everything that he gave to get Denny to the level that Denny is at, of being what is going to be one day a surefire Hall of Fame induction, to 60 Cup wins, which is a threshold that only 10 other drivers in the history of stock car racing can say they've gotten to be a contender for multiple championships, even though he doesn't have a championship trophy on his wall. Dennis Hamlin, I think, can look down and say his son is in fact a champion in every sense of the word that matters. And I was able to write, I hope people will go to the Steering Wheel Nation hub, steeringwheelnation.com. I was able to put together um, a tribute to the work that Dennis did to get Denny to the Cup Series, and kind of a look back on what some of those sacrifices entailed, and really just doing the research to put that piece together, really put it into perspective for me, not just the Hamlin family's situation specifically, but really the sacrifices that all of our parents make for us in life to get to wherever we want to go. And I think that's what makes this whole situation so hard, is like, we knew we would have to talk about it eventually from what Denny had said at the end of last year, but we never thought we would have to talk about it in this context.
No. And I don't know really what to add to that, because you summed it up beautifully. We all knew coming down to the end of the season that, Dennis was not in good health. Denny was pretty candid about that. And it's why Denny was so determined to finally break through and win that NASCAR Cup title for his dad. But this is just a circumstance that you just don't wish on anyone. And it is just gut wrenching to, your heart breaks and you don't know what to say, and we still continue to pray, as you say, for his mom, for her recovery. And Denny did produce an update that talked about the fact that she was, in fact, starting to recover, which is certainly a blessing. And we just can only pray that that continues. But yeah, just a terrible, terrible tragedy for the Hamlin family and the NASCAR world in general. And our thoughts and prayers are with Denny and his mom and their family throughout this whole ordeal.
And not just their family, too, to take a step into the second tough piece of news that we got going into the new year, with the sudden passing of former Watkins Glen International Track president Michael Printup, who had most recently served as the chief operating officer for Racing America and overseeing the Trans Am series presented by Pirelli, that sports car division. And Tom, I know this really resonated with you in a lot of ways, just because of the work that that Michael did at Watkins Glen. You being a New York native, him, being a New York native for as long as he was, spent 15 years at the Glen, really spearheading what that track has been for so long, and just, hard to illustrate exactly everything he has meant to what Watkins Glen is now. I think, is much of what Michael Printup was as a person. He was passionate, he was determined, and really everything he touched in the industry, he wanted it to be the best.
Yeah. Back, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, when I first went back to the Glen for the first time since moving south, I had the chance to talk directly to Michael. And, I talked about the credential process and, things that I wanted or needed. And he couldn't have been nicer to me. And normally you get an employee, you don't get the manager of the track or whatever. I spoke with him a couple of times since, and once in his role with Trans Am, which is part of now the Racing America brand, since they bought the Racing America media and rebranded their company. And he was not only a gentleman and a great guy to be around, but he was so passionate about motorsports. I really felt like, much like you are and I am, I felt like he was a kindred spirit, and he just was always there. If somebody needed him, had a question or whatever, he'd take his time and give you all help he could. Just a real, true, passionate motorsports fan, I felt like, in addition to being a great leader and manager. And again, sudden passing there. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and loved ones, and also to all of those who knew him from motorsports, both back at the Glen and currently in the Racing America family too, because this one hit really hard.
It did. And I just want to say real quickly, I mean, I hate to end on a tough note, so I'm going to try not to, but I mean, it just has been such a tough off season for the entire motorsports industry. When you think about the two that we just talked about, Michael Annette, Nick Janitis from the Arca West family, the Biffles and the plane crash a few weeks ago. I just hope as we end off this show and kind of look ahead to the new year that we can get back to the track soon and have more positive things to talk about, because we've just endured some gut punches going into 2026. I hope the rest of 2026 can be brighter spirits for the motorsports industry, because you and I and everybody else that follows the show loves this sport so much, and we want to see it get back to giving the good that we all know it has.
Absolutely. And with that, we bring this episode to a close. We will have coverage of all the big events coming up in the short track racing world, the Rolex 24, everything leading up to Speed Weeks in Florida, the Chili Bowl, of course, all of it on steeringwheelnation.com and on our Steering Wheel Nation socials at The Wheel Nation on Facebook and X, and you can reach me on X, the SWN Tom. Jacob is at Jacob Seelman 77, and we look forward to the next episode of the Tom Baker Show. Until then, thanks for watching.